The line, "We the people of the United States," is one of the most well-known in the Constitution. It was written by one of the most mysterious founding fathers. Gouverneur Morris was born in the Bronx and lived in Europe for many years. He was one of the craziest founding fathers, but not the best. Even though none of the founding fathers were perfect, Morris may have lived the surest life. Morris always had something interesting to say, whether it was about having trysts at the Louvre or losing a leg in an accident caused by cheating. Morris liked getting busy in public places, including the Louvre. He waited till he was 57 years old to get married. During the time that he was single, he engaged in a number of amorous adventures, one of which resulted in his losing a limb. In a different incident that took place in France, Morris engaged in a protracted affair with a married woman who resided in the Louvre. Prior to its transformation into one of the most renowned art museums in the world, the Louvre first served as a palace for the French king. It is now home to the world-famous Mona Lisa. At addition, Morris's lady friend found herself residing at that location. In his journal, Morris documented their romantic relationship, and he used the phrase "celebrating" as a code word for sexual activity. If his diary is any indicator, it would appear that the two of them found pleasure in taking chances. One of the diary entries describes the pair having sex in the hallway with the doors open. "Go to the Louvre. We take the chance of interruption and celebrate in the passage while Mademoiselle is at the harpsichord in the drawing room. The husband is below. Visitors are hourly expected. The doors are all open." He didn't record whether they were caught. Morris attempted surgery on his urethra with a whalebone, and it killed him. Towards the end of his life, Morris encountered an obstruction in his urethra, which caused him to have difficulty urinating. At this time, researchers are of the opinion that he may have been afflicted with prostate cancer. The resourceful founding father took a do-it-yourself approach to the issue, and he sought to alleviate the obstruction by inserting a piece of whalebone into his urethra. During the course of the process, he was responsible for a significant amount of damage, which finally led to his passing. Days after he died, a Boston newspaper reported that Morris died from a short but distressing illness. Morris married a housekeeper accused of adultery and murder. Over the course of many years, Morris never settled down, opting instead to spend his time amorously pursuing relationships with married women. Nevertheless, he stunned the entire world when, at the age of 57, he wed his housekeeper, and that was just the beginning of his relationship with her. In 1809, Morris made the announcement of his marriage to Anne Gary Randolph, who was 22 years his junior. The event took place during a Christmas celebration. Anne, also known as Nancy, had a reputation that began in 1792 when she was accused of murder and adultery. Her reputation began to grow after this. Reportedly, Nancy, who was only 17 years old at the time, has slept with her brother-in-law. The child that was born as a result of the illegal union passed away shortly after birth. The trial of Nancy for murder was held, despite the fact that she maintained that the baby had been stillborn. After some time, she was found not guilty. On the day he married Nancy, Morris wrote in his diary, "I marry this day Anne Gary Randolph. No small surprise to my guests." Morris lost his leg after sleeping with a married woman. A carriage struck Morris when he was 32 years old, causing him to lose his leg. But there is a lot more to what appears to be a straightforward accident. As far as historian Dave Kimball is concerned, the occurrence took place in Philadelphia at the point where Logan's Alley and Dock Street join. When a furious husband discovered that the founding father was having sexual relations with his wife, Morris, who was known for his ability to attract women, found himself in a difficult situation. During the time that Morris was attempting to escape the disdainful husband, a carriage ran over his leg. "We regret to inform you that it had to be amputated." One of Morris's acquaintances expressed optimism that the new peg leg would assist Morris in avoiding the pleasures and dissipations of life, into which young men are too apt to be led. This observation was made after the accident that Morris had been involved in. In response, Morris responded by saying, "You argue the matter so handsomely and point out so clearly the advantages of being without legs that I am almost tempted to part with the other. Morris bought Marie Antoinette's furniture and shipped it to the Bronx. The time that Morris spent working as a diplomat allowed him to accumulate a number of peculiar items. One of the most turbulent times in the history of the French Revolution occurred during his time serving as the United States minister to France. Morris, who was there throughout the Reign of Terror, was a staunch opponent of the revolution and, strangely, took the side of the monarchy and sided with them. He went so far as to make an attempt to save Louis XVII and Marie Antoinette from the rebels who would ultimately seek to put them to death. It is possible that Morris purchased Antoinette's furnishings in order to recall his time spent in France. It was initially located at Versailles, where the lavish set, which featured an armchair with beautifully designed upholstery, was displayed. The complete collection was purchased by Morris and then transported to the Bronx during the time of the French Revolution. Morris drove off an angry mob with his peg leg. The fact that Morris had a peg leg did not slow him down. In point of fact, his buddy and fellow founding father John Jay expressed to Morris his desire that his friend had lost something else. Despite the fact that it cost him a leg, Morris continued to seduce married women for a number of years. And while Morris was in France, he used his wooden leg to drive away a group of rebels who were attempting to overpower him. The years that Morris spent in France occurred during the most violent phase of the French Revolution. The historian Forrest MacDonald writes that Morris was traveling in an elaborate carriage with a lady friend when they were confronted by a mob that was hostile against aristocratic individuals. With a yell of "Vive la Révolution!" Morris ripped off his leg and hurled it out of the window. Morris was able to escape in his carriage at a high rate of speed since the sight diverted the attention of the rebels. Morris came up with "We the People of the United States." A new constitution was drafted during a meeting that took place in Philadelphia in the year 1787. The number of remarks that Morris delivered during the Constitutional Convention was 173, making him one of the most influential delegates. He was able to provide more speeches than any other delegate. Morris advocated for a powerful presidency that has the power to veto in addition to a Senate that was elite. Moreover, he was a staunch opponent of slavery. Morris was the one who was in charge of polishing the final draft of the Constitution, and it was through his efforts that the most significant line in the Constitution was established. The original draft read, "We, the people of the states of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Providence Plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, do ordain, declare, and establish the following Constitution for the government of ourselves and our posterity." Morris changed it to the much more succinct, "We, the people of the United States," in order to form a more perfect union. Morris hated slavery, unlike many other founding fathers. One of the most famous statements in the Declaration of Independence is that all men are created equal. The fact remains, however, that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson possessed a combined total of roughly 1,000 slaves. Contrarily, Morris was a staunch opponent of the institution of slavery. In the course of the Constitutional Convention, Morris referred to slavery as a nefarious institution. He harshly condemned the practice, saying, "Proceed southwardly, and every step you take through the great regions of slaves presents a desert increasing with the increasing proportion of these wretched beings." Morris created modern Manhattan. Morris grew up in the Bronx, which back then was mostly country. As an adult, he was very important in making New York what it is today by pushing for the Erie Canal. He also changed the city plan for Manhattan, leaving his mark on New York City forever. In 1807, Morris was put on a group whose job it was to make a master plan for how the growing city would be laid out. Instead of the circles and ovals that were common in European towns at the time, the commission made a grid system for the city in 1811 with 155 streets and 12 avenues. European-style plazas that made building lots less straight were not used by the builders. New York City would be made up of right-angled houses, cheap to build and convenient to live in. Because they were in the middle of a new street, 39% of the pre-grid buildings had to be torn down so that the big change could happen. Morris grew up in an idyllic estate named after his family. The history of the Morrisania neighborhood in the Bronx may be traced back to the 1670s, when the Morris family purchased 500 acres of land along the Harlem River. When Gouverneur Morris was born on the land in 1752, it consisted of approximately 2,000 acres at the time. At that time, the area was primarily used for dairy cattle and small farms. However, Morris eventually constructed an immense mansion for himself on the land. There was also a proposal made by the Morris family to the Continental Congress to use the family estate as a possible location for the new capital of the United States. To this day, the neighborhood still has St. Anne's Church, which is the location where Morris is laid to rest. It's hard to keep all the Morrises straight. In addition to Gouverneur Morris, there were other Morrises who were present during the establishment of the nation. Another individual who signed the Declaration of Independence was his half-brother, Lewis Morris himself. Robert Morris, a friend of his who was a financier and was not related to Gouverneur in any way, also signed his name on the document. Following the conclusion of the war, Gouverneur and Robert worked together to ensure the financial stability of the United States. In the course of the Revolutionary Military, Robert Morris served as the Superintendent of Finance, and he was largely responsible for ensuring that the military effort continued to function. However, Robert was confronted with a huge setback of his own. When Robert Gouverneur was sitting in the United States Senate, he lost a significant amount of money by gambling on land, and he passed away in a state of near poverty. As for Gouverneur's unique first name, it was his mother's maiden name, and yes, it means governor. Baby Namespedia reports, Gouverneur is not popular as a baby name for boys. Morris served in the Continental Congress as an ally of George Washington. One of the youngest members of the Continental Congress, Morris worked for the New York Revolutionary Government during the American Revolution. He later served in the Continental Congress as a member of the Continental Congress. Morris developed a close relationship with George Washington, in addition to a great number of other founding fathers. Through his participation in a number of committees at the Continental Congress, Morris, who kept a meticulous diary and recorded many facts about his life in letters, was able to document his life. He also stated in his writing that he was responsible for the vast bulk of the work on each and every committee that he participated on. Throughout the years, Morris and George Washington maintained a close relationship. Morris was a staunch defender of Washington. In later years, Morris was known for his significant contributions to the Constitutional Convention. The Constitution, which has ruled the United States of America for generations, was significantly influenced by him. We hope you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're a history addict, and please let us know about what civilization or time period we should talk about. Also, watch another video here.